If you don't know me, and you're watching this later, I'm Helen Patterson. I'm the founder of LifeWorks Well, an HR consultancy that helps organizations create high performance, healthy, and heart centered cultures. And we do everything with heart, HR with heart. And we've expanded to now look at mentor with heart. And what is creating a mentor culture about? It is part of ripple effect of just giving and growing and learning together. So that's sort of the next phase of Life Works Well. And one of the things I always say is life works well when you do. And without our health, without our groundedness, really we can't be of service to other people. And that's why I started LifeWorks originally. So I think I'm getting back to those roots a little bit more now. And I started this book circle about a year and a bit ago. The first couple of authors were men. Not that I have anything against men. I'm a champion of men. I'm not a man, basher. But I just realized I really want to champion women and their voices. So at the beginning of January 2025, I decided to focus on women authors. And so many of them have been so generous and kind to share their time with whoever shows up. And so today I'm very, very excited to welcome Lisa Bragg. And I just love the fact that Lisa's last name is also part of the book called Bragging Rights. It is just, how perfect is that, right? Like that it worked out that way. So clever. I listened to the audio a while back, and then I bought the book as well. And oh gosh, sorry, I'm going to turn this off because people are trying to get in and I can't help them. Karen, can you send Lovell a note? Tell her to go back and register. I don't know what happened. Anyway, yeah, and I got the book again, and I thought this is just perfect timing for me personally, having released the book and having been modest. And you talk about that in the book, having been modest and not sharing just how freaking amazing I am. So the new Helen, the future her, will be stepping into that a little bit more when I look back on my life and what I've overcome and all that I've accomplished. I really do want to share that more. So let me just read a little bit about Lisa's bio real quick, and then we're going to get into some questions and it'll be opened up for you later. And how amazing, Lisa, first of all, former TV anchor and host, 20,000 plus interviews. I love the story about Justin Bieber in the book. That was so cool. And I'm like, yeah, you go. Author of Bragging Rights. And the research that Lisa did for this book is like across 23 countries. So it's just phenomenal to really dive into this, what does even bragging mean and how do we step into like our accomplishment and sharing and the differences between men and women. Award-winning entrepreneur, 2 times fast-growing company, and amazing. Just if you read her bio and check out LinkedIn, I just think championing for women's voices and putting this body of work out there is phenomenal. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. What I would love is everybody, if you could put a little brag about yourself in the chat, that would be fantastic. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to ask Lisa the first question. People often show up, they are writers or they want to be an author in the future as well. So I always love to hear the author's journey on, how was the writing journey, first of all, because mine was like, up and down. But what brought you to decide that this book was really needed in the world?
Oh, well, thanks for having me here. I'm so excited because I think I recognize a few people, at least from LinkedIn and somewhere else in the world. So thanks for having me. I had an inkling about the book. I was starting to get interested. I'd heard a few other people, they had published, and I was like, what is this journey? So I started gathering. I did a panel at a club and said, so tell me about your author's journey. And it was really about them profiling themselves so I can be gathering information. So it was a give back to the community, but I was also data mining all these people, similar to what you're doing now. So asking other people and hearing about their journey is one of the secrets I think to success. So I started thinking, well, why don't I have a book? I have all these things that I'm starting to talk about. I was coaching about, I was, starting to speak about it. I had, was a journalist, then I owned a media company. There's a red thread to all of this. And so I was actually at TED Women, which was, we were allowed to go there during the pandemic. And I said, I got to do a 2-minute speech just off the side. So not on the big red circle, but just off the side. They'd asked the audience, all the people who had been in attendance for the past week, if you wanted to have a chance to speak. And so I won this chance and I got to go first, which I hadn't spoken in public for a while because had been the pandemic. So all this audience and so many amazing people in it. So I did my 2-minute speech, and it was about what's next. And so, you go to all these great events and everyone's rah, rah, rah in the moment. And then afterwards, nothing gets done from it. And so I said, so I challenged them. So are you going to go away and promote these people and brag and talk about each other and things like that? And I had afterwards, I had so many people come up to me and say, you do have a book in you, you need to do something. So I had some validation early on about some of my concepts from that 2-minute speech. But then I was walking around too, and people were like, everyone's writing a book right now. So, write a book. And then I was talking to some literary agents there, and they said, well, Lisa, everyone's writing a book right now. So good luck to you. So it was like one of those things, what do I want to do? So I had to be really heart-centered and decide to write the book. So I have hours about it. Helen, do you want me to keep going on about my journey? Because mine was messy.
I would love it. I would love it just because it's so interesting that I had someone recently told me that they wrote their book in 6 hours, and it really was deflating because mine has been like off and on for years, and I put it on hold for 2 years, and then there was just one thing after another that kept me, like life events, and I thought, wow. But I'm trying to always be positive and celebrate others too. And then this book also, I think about that. No, celebrate yourself more. So I'd love to know about that because I think you published with page 2. And I was thinking about doing that, but I did the independent, and I actually, who knows what's next? I really just want to relish this for now. It's early.
You just started about it because you're just at the beginning. So yeah, the lift. Yes. So I interrupted, but yes. Mm-hmm. So I realized, I had a friend who was on the writing journey, and I was supposed to hand in my manuscript, and she said, oh, don't worry. It just needs to be a satisfactory kind of like here, just give them, I call it vomit on the page. There's another word for calling it. It's just like, she thought it was supposed to be just stream of consciousness. So I handed it to my editor, and she's like, oh, what's this? And it was supposed to be at this stage a satisfactory second draft, not just, my thoughts and stream of consciousness. What I didn't realize that my friend had a ghostwriter, and I didn't choose the ghostwriting path. So there's so many paths that people take on their writing journey. So essentially, to keep my deadline, and I don't know why I wanted this firm deadline of May, but I had to come up with a better outline. So I'd recommend that everyone starts with a solid outline. And then because I already had the research, so the research was done, but it's the solid outline. And then I essentially had 6 weeks to really write it. So I had all this stuff everywhere. And then I had 6 weeks. I'm a former broadcast journalist, so that plays into it. So I had it done in 6 weeks, but it was intensive. It was, my daughter was probably on her own a little bit more than what I wanted. My husband was doing everything. So it was like one of those things. You can't do these things by yourself in the intense way. I was making a lot of faces when you said somebody wrote it in 6 hours. I honestly don't see how that is possible at all, to write something that is really from your head, heart, and your embodiment. Like, I don't know how you would possibly do that. So I think a journey of 2 or 3 years is realistic for most people. I think it's really hard to get it done fast. I talk now about speed of opportunity, and we want things done fast. But a book does take a long time to germinate, and then it takes a long time to get published. So that's where the publishing journey is a whole other conversation of how long things can take. But 6 hours, unless it's a little ebook, that seems really fast for me. So Helen, I'm just giving you, honor that you took the time, and that's where the book came out that was supposed to be the book of you. So it takes time in the process for sure.
Yeah, I really found letting it go really helped me because the editing phase is interesting. Because one thing that here's the thing again, championing myself. I was a lead editor and author for Thomson Reuters, which is a huge publication company. The only thing is, I kept diminishing it because it was not my original baby. I inherited two publications in the HR field. Unfortunately, one of the authors had passed, and so they needed someone to take on because they have that subscription model, constant updating. So it's quite different being an editor and just looking at someone else's and trying to do that. So I do appreciate the editors because it is a pain in the arse. But anyway, and then the other one was a law firm had originally written it, a lawyer, and I have a legal background. And so to have the legal HR background was perfect for these publications. But again, I didn't even put that out there. And so I thought, I'm already an author. This is crazy. But this was my own baby up there, birthed. And so much of what you talk about in the book is there, like the fear, the not believing, not, who am I to write a book? It is one of those things. But I blurted it out. And once I let go and I just said, okay, whatever timeline, it's going to work out. Uh, Before the end of the year, because I always thought November 11th, 11/11 and 1/11 are important to me. They kept showing up while I was writing and while I met this woman who founded Black Mentorship Inc., and a portion of the proceeds go to her company. And so, that I let go finally and said, it's going to just come when it comes. And then everything seemed to flow a lot more from that. I was on the final edits thanks to Karen Dean, who actually has founded a company, Canada Rights, and my accountability partner, and helping me navigate all of these other things. And I just did things not the way that most people do. But hey, the first one's birthed. And I think, I was thinking about today and asking you questions, and I wanted to know, because I know you did a lot of research, like well over 400 people, I think, involved, and even longer, and this whole dynamic, the difference between men and women. And I thought, why do you think that is? And for those who haven't read the full book yet, or we're going to read it later, why do you think that is, that women are more hesitant to be vocal about our accomplishments and share?
Well, actually, from the book, it's more deeper than that, than our women men kind of story. I think it's that we're told so often as young girls to be nice. So I think it does start there. But men do have struggle with it. But we're told to be nice, and when we brag and self promote, that's an I statement, right? It's actually of service, but we feel like it's an I statement. It's all about me. And that's not a nice girl thing to do. We're taught to put your head down, do good things, and eventually someone will notice you, do good work, and someone will notice you. We're taught in school usually to get the good grades. Here's the rubric of success. It's not, don't be loud, don't be boisterous. We're taught these things. A few years ago, my daughter, they were on, well, there's two stories. One, my daughter was participating in a sailing event, and the girls were just like above and beyond boisterous, excited because they were about to win. There was a lot of cheering, and they were told to not be poor winners. And then a friend of mine came up to me, and she's from the US, and she said, at her daughter's soccer game, the girls were winning and they were over the top, and they were again told something similar to, chill as the winners, that you shouldn't. And then meanwhile, the boys on the next field over winning their championships nobody said anything to them. And they were like, all of our alarms would be going off with the noise of this thing. And so we're taught differently, even still today, which is sad because you think, oh, haven't we come a long way? And we haven't on this. So I think it's a little bit of that we're taught. It's interesting though, when I give this talk, I'll have people say, oh, it's my culture to not brag and self-promote. And what I'm finding is that it's so many of us, our cultures don't allow us to brag and self-promote. I was in line I was at TED Women, as I was mentioning that I was there a few years ago. And this woman, beautiful New Yorker, so well coiffed, the whole thing, very successful on lots of boards, telling me all the things that she had done. And so she turned to me in the coffee line. She said, Lisa, so what do you do? And I said, well, I'm thinking about writing this book. The premise is, how we're taught, put your head down, do good work, and eventually someone will notice you. But that's not for you. And she said, Lisa, of course that's for me. I'm Catholic. And I'm like, oh, a New Yorker. And because you have these, people have this misconception that some people are going to be really good at it. And it's actually not true. So it is a skill that we have to learn. And it's also a practice that we have to come back to, including me. I have to come back to it and remember why I need to do this work. Because really, when you brag and self-promote, it's not ego, it's clarity, and it's about how we are of service to the world. So it goes back to your heart HR. It's being of service for people.
Oh, I love that. I love that because it's you know, the book that I wrote, Create a Mentor Culture, part of it came from not having the guidance and mentors. When you read the book, you find out a little bit about my parents, and that's a future book. I already have an idea for that, but they both were born in Poland and children of the war, I call them. And so what they passed on to us, I mean, they came as immigrants to Canada to start this beautiful new life for us. We grew up in Ontario housing, which is just down the way from here. And, people will look at me and think, oh, white woman, privilege, silver spoon, law school. I'm like, no, do you know how I got there? Like, that's what I need to share more. But I just keep thinking about having people that will, champion. I mean, obviously, if other people brag about you, it's a lot better. It feels a little bit better. But to learn to just be comfortable and even in starting a business when you do an introduction and, the award winning and the best selling, like my book hit bestseller in like the first day. Karen's the one sending it to me. And I'm like, how the heck did that happen? But it's just stepping into it and being comfortable with the purpose behind it. I love that. It's really about the service and that, the credentials. And so I had these experiences that kind of, and you share a lot in the book that kind of start to make you shrink when you go back to your younger self. And what are those things that you're still carrying around in your patterns? And so there's so much that was wrapped in here, and I just love it.
Thank you.
I wanted to kind of get to something, and I'm going to open it up for other questions for anyone, as you know, who, if you've been here before. But I really want to read this little part about titles in chapter 7 about self-promote, right at the end. Right before there's some things about inferiority and superiority complexes, and then you get into titles, and I think this is fascinating. Titles are limited. You might have positional influence where your power is attached to your title, but you will likely see that influence wane when you move away from that job. It's the position that has power, and it's about authority. No matter your role, you want to focus on having professional influence rather than flaunt your title. This type of influence carries with you. You'll have a more resilient professional influence when you've won hearts and minds. Okay, I'm also just getting goosebumps when I'm reading that again, because what you said about what do you do, that drove me crazy for a while. It's like someone would say, well, what do you do? And I'm like, Well, I am a mom, I am a friend, I am all these amazing things. But it was just like I used to answer like that because, and then I would say, listen, I just have this thing about getting to know people, and it's not what we do in these titles. And our identity gets so wrapped up in these things, and really it's beyond that. So that really, this part really resonated, and I'd love you to share a little bit more about that and that part of the book, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, Helen, I think you really got to the heart of it, though. I think a lot of us now, where we have so many, the hyphens go on and on and on. It's not just one thing that we're doing. We're doing so many things professionally and personally. And so defining yourself by a title, and I know a lot of people, having that title is part of their, I always want to be a VP. I wanted to be the CEO, and that recognition piece was really important to them. But the era that we're living in now, titles come and go so fast. And so, in the book, I talk about a famous Canadian broadcaster who lost her job and was coming down. And then the younger person was coming up. And it was kind of a mismatch of timing where here I am, this new title, here she just lost their title. And timing sometimes matters with titles. But what we always have going up or down the elevator is really the story, the expertise that we carry and that we can talk about in our identity, and also the narrative power. So there's three powers that people talk about, where we have the positional power, which is fleeting. You're going down the elevator, escalator, they're going up, vice versa. And then we also have the expertise power, which everyone in this room, I think you're all experts in something. And now the challenge with being the expertise power nowadays is that AI, so it's making so many people in 6 hours an expert in your field, right? And that's not great. But what we all have and what we can use is really our narrative power. And that's the power of storytelling that we can use. It's the power of owning your self-promotion. It's owning your narrative around things. And so when we have that narrative power, that's what can really take us further. And I don't think that's in the book. I've added so much. You know what? One thing, my editor was so great, and I wish she had tapped me a little bit earlier. She's like, Lisa, you have to leave things to talk about afterwards, to write your next book, to coach on, to do, on stages, like all this extra IP. So that's one thing. If you are going to write a book, make it shorter, not longer, because all of us, we want to put all that in and that much more to partially prove our value to things. But that's some of the extended thinking, is not thinking about your positional power so much, especially when titles move around. Like, what is that in one organization to another organization? But it's really about how you own your narrative power. How do you tell your stories of being whatever role, including junior roles? Like, you can really tell a great story that should be told for your whole career based on the outcomes of it. So it's our narrative power that really can make a difference for every single person, instead of waiting on titles, which are fleeting.
Wow, I love that. And I think that would be a great next um, follow up, and the power concept, because I was always uncomfortable with that word for a long time. Words, I have this thing about words and, the words we use. There was actually one of the authors, she wrote a book called The Words, with a Z at the end, The Words We Wear. But I think, that whole power concept, as far as, what comes with titles. And I found it really interesting when I moved from the legal profession into an HR role. And if I was to say the same thing and I still had my legal role specifically, and the same thing as an HR professional, it was like there was more weight to it coming from me as a legal professional. And it just was really, really fascinating to watch, because again, so much, this is way off topic a bit, but not really, but that whole ego and title, and I sometimes find it a bit contradictory, because let go of all of that. It really doesn't matter, right? Are you in ego when you're talking about that? Or is it really, can you let go of it more, and it's really championing your work? That's it, right? So that whole dynamic feels like a little bit of a contradiction sometimes, but I'm getting more comfortable.
Good, good. I just think it's the era that we're in. I think the titles really did matter for a very, very long time as we were in the knowledge economy. But especially now, as we're in this AI world that we're quickly sliding into, I think the title issue is changing fast. So
Yeah.
don't stick to it, and don't think that you have power forever because you are whatever title, because as somebody put in the chat, titles are rented. And so Deborah said that yeah, they're gone. So are you going to lose your full identity because you're no longer that person? And that's what when I had my media company, it's still running, but I'm not in the day to day of it. But I was like, where do I start and where does MediaFace start? And I was so involved and engrossed in everything, trying to get this company to be successful and do all the things. I was promoting it all the time and not promoting myself. And so that's where, especially a lot of people in corporate, they lose their identity to being XYZ at this financial services institution. And then if something happens, then what? And then it takes so long to build up who they are, where they're going, what they want to do. And they haven't been marketing to where they want to go. They've just been really trying to work the system within the organization they're in. And it's a bigger play nowadays than just where you are right in this moment or where you've been. It's really where you're going to go next.
Yeah, that's amazing. I will have lots of questions, but I know this crowd, a couple of you who are here regularly. If anyone wants to come out at any time, please. I know Deborah put something on a LinkedIn post. Did you want to ask a question of Lisa? Because I mean, I think I have just witnessed you. We work together, so Deborah and I work together at one of the clients I worked with, and just the growth I've seen and in the last several years and just stepping out, I've just loved it. So I would love it if you asked anything of Lisa, and anybody else, feel free to put up your hand or pop out and I can save some of mine for later.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. Lisa, I just appreciate this. And Helen, I appreciate you having this, because it's the perfect opportunity and the perfect tie-in to next week is Administrative Professionals Day. And with as admins, we are so often behind the scenes and we don't get to talk about what we do. Our value is often very hidden because we're the ones that are solving the problems before anybody ever knows there was going to be a problem. So for us, it's about being able to showcase what we do every day and express our value without giving away company secrets and overstepping boundaries or stepping on somebody's toes or whatever. And that's kind of what I wrote about this morning on LinkedIn, was how we have to be advocates. And I also appreciate in your book, because you called out and thanked assistants. So thank you for that, because we don't get a lot of recognition sometimes. But I just think that, if you have any advice for our profession and how we can have our bragging rights without the title, because that is the big conversation in our industry right now. The new Global Skills Matrix comes out next week, and I forget how many countries there were, but there was over 3,000 responses to the survey that went out, and over 180 titles have been identified for administrative professions. So when we say titles are rented, they absolutely are, because there's so many titles in the administrative profession and none of them truly showcase what any of us do.
Yeah, I think you're part of that lost area for some reason. It's just, the person that you're reporting to, they get the glory, right? And you're the ones who are doing, is that right, Deborah? Like they really are. Yeah. And I think it's in the book. I can't remember. I did include it, but it's that one group. They knew that the partners were going to cut back, and they thought, well, what are these people doing? Why should we value them? We can we can outsource it. We can do this. So they realized that they needed to, their leader brought me in to make sure that they were seen and heard that partners knew the value that they were bringing. It wasn't just a cost center, is actually a profit center. And so it's reframing. Are we a cost center that as admin, are we costing you money? How can we flip this to say, we're actually making you money? So that might be a way of considering, how do you make sure that they know that we're not a cost center? Yes, we cost. We're people doing a job. But how do you make sure that they know that you're making them money in ways? And so often money is a language that a lot of people want to talk about without giving away secrets. So how do you think about, well, we're saving you money, we're making you money, we're doing these kind of things that are in the money way? Is that helpful at all, Deborah, to have it in that reframe of so you're not giving away the secrets, that it's about, we are a profit center and not a cost center?
Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation about how, we make significantly less than a CEO or whatever executive that we report to. And so therefore we are saving the company money because the CEO isn't, with their 6-figure salary, isn't doing admin tasks. They're not filling out expense reports and, and things like that. But so many times, admins get looked at as, we are a cost. We are, we aren't revenue producing, but we are revenue adjacent because we are able to protect the time of the executives that we support and the team members that we support so that they can go out and make the money.
Well, because without you, they wouldn't, right? It would be, they're in the weeds. And so that's where a lot of the messaging, thinking about how do we make sure that you're not seen in the task based, that tasks are, if you are doing tasks, but it's task, so task, service, experiential and transformational, right? That's how we value things in the value ladder. So tasks, people don't value them, and now AI, right? So it's a problem. So tasks, service, then experiential, we start to see strategy and think, well, we're having an experience together. And then transformational. So when you're thinking about how to position yourselves and admin, think about it away from the tasks that we're doing, your calendar or whatever those things, but the experiential and the transformational areas that you can be taking people. So tasks are we're in the do, we're often in the weeds. Then we're doing a service. We all do services. We're service-based. A lot of us are service-based. I think the people that I know, I think we're all service-based. It's being of service, but it's not that transactional thinking of a long time ago, right? It's how do I make sure that I'm having an experience with that person that's experiential, and then that we're making sure that the next level is how do I help them transform? Because I believe people who are in admin are actually people that you should have on your board of directors because they know the shortcuts to everything. Right? Deborah, would you agree with me on that? Yeah, thanks, Level. Yeah. It's so thinking about it that way might be a way for you to go.
I love it. I love it. And because if you thought about the hourly, if you did it on an hourly rate of the CEO's time or the COO or the CFO, whoever you report to, it's like that, taking off the tasks that are not their zone of genius or all of those other things. And there's a good book that talks about like your first hire as a small business and as a founder is to get an amazing assistant, executive assistant, and because you're looking at that value of the time and the money that's involved in that calculation. So that's fantastic. I see that Lovell has her hand up, so that's good.
I'm just going to add one thing. Lisa. It's experiential when you're doing those things. The experience of the founder changes dramatically when they have somebody who's right there with them. And then it transforms their business to going from a one-to-one to, how many more people can we serve? So all of that. So anyway, Helen, you said you had somebody else on. I just wanted to add that in. So.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And this is all about your wisdom and that. I love that ladder too. So that's another thing to dig into. Lovell, over to you. Sorry about the mixed up getting in today. Tech.
Thank you. Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Helen, and happy Friday, everyone. So nice to see new faces and some familiar faces. Hi, Deborah. I really like to thank Lisa for writing this book. I have not read it, I will be honest, but I'm so happy there is an audible version in your voice, of course. And I love listening to books or podcasts or whatever when I go for my walks. So this one is right on top of my list now. It's encouraging to know that there are cheerleaders like you who are trying to boost us up. And you really very rightly said it's so hard for us to acknowledge our own value and then talk about it, not just rant about it or feel bad about it. My question is a two-part actually. So I see that you do a lot of talks and, go into companies and talk. But when you normally are on stage, do your topics revolve around mostly women, or are they generic? And the second part, which is sort of a follow-up, is what do you see the reaction from men?
You know what? It's really interesting because women automatically want to bring me on. Women automatically claim it. But I get a lot of emails from men with saying, you know what, it's me too. And men often are the ones who hire me. So, and pay me my full fee. So it's really
Wow,
interesting.
that's interesting.
Because men see it as a need for their team and they're often champions and wanting to bring in speakers. So often my topic, I make sure that that people can all see themselves, everyone can see themselves in it. And if it's not for them, that's what my research with more than 400 people and 23 different countries has shown, is that 85% of us have a challenge with bragging and self-promotion. So then the math is 15%. Well, congratulations. They find it easy to do. But anyone on their team and most of their other colleagues are in that 85%. So listen up, right? It's not just for you if you are good at the bragging and self-promotion. How can you help the other people to also be good at it? So when I talk, I do know some people hear wah, because it's not for them. But then when I frame it that it's also for their team, then they start to lean in and take notes too. So it's fun. I had this privilege of speaking to a group, and the people behind it sort of left the invitation open. It's a very big organization, and they said, we're celebrating this event. You had a whole team involved, and they were bankers from all over the world. And they said, but you can only bring one person. And they kept saying, can we bring 2, 3? No. Only one person. So some of the organizations sent their most senior banker, and some sent their junior person who is also on this team that helped do this big event, this big thing. And so when I got there, I think the client thought there were going to be more women and like skew a little bit different in age. When I got there, it was all older men in banking, all of them. Like there was like 3 women, younger women kind of thing. And younger meaning anyone who's under, like, I don't know what age, but it was surprising. So I'm like, oh my goodness, is this going to land what I had planned? And so I just listened to what the speakers before me were saying, and they were all internal speakers to this organization, thanking these people for the job well done. And I was just lifting up notes. I'm like, well, that ties into bragging rights, and that ties into bragging rights, and this and this and this and this. I just have to say it back in the way that they're talking about it and reframe it. And so while I was getting mic'd up, because I had to get mic'd up right in front of everyone. And if you're ever a speaker, that miking up stage is kind of awkward. So we had to walk across the stage, get the microphone. It was really awkward. So I decided, as this person was touching my clothes and everything to mic me up, that I would show them my notes. I would say, hey, as I was listening, I have all these notes. And you know what? What I'm going to talk about essentially is the speed of opportunity that I heard from it. And I saw all of them lean in. So when I framed my work with thinking about the speed of opportunity, that's when I had all these people lean in and want to hear more about what I was saying. And then I had most of my regular programming, but I just kept teasing in the speed of opportunity that they really resonated with that audience. So it was a little nerve-wracking up at the beginning, though. When I walked in, I was like, oh, are these my people? They're going to be my people. I have to make them my people. This is a big gig for me. So fun. Yeah. Thank you.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I see that Lee has a question, so that's fantastic. If you do have to go, let me know later, because I do want to, whoever has a book will take a screenshot. Emmeline's not here today to do it, so I might have to get someone to help. But Lee, so good to see you. Thanks for popping in and sharing this collaboration. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. So Lisa, I have your book. I started reading it. I love it. It's certainly a topic that is near and dear to my heart, out of personal experience. My childhood was definitely one that required you to be very aware of the fact that everybody that in my family, we all had a lot of wounds that we were trying to heal. And so I was raised by a single mom, and like we were sort of taught to be keep quiet, right? And you're too, like, I always remember growing up feeling like I was too much. And it's funny because now when my cousin's kids, they're on social media, and especially the girls, my mom will always comment, oh, she's just too much. Like, she's putting herself out there too much because she's a singer. And so she's always like, and I'm just like, wow, like, I don't understand that. And I think that it came down to the fact that my mom was extremely intelligent. But she grew up just like Helen's situation. She grew up very poor, and, left school at 16. She could have done anything. But like with her brain, like just the smartest lady you could ever imagine. And so she ended up working for others, in admin roles. And so when I was getting close to graduating, high school, at one point I really wanted to be a writer, and my mom discouraged me from being a writer because she was like, oh, you'll never get a job in that. You'll never make anything of yourself. And then I think so I decided just before entering school that I was going to become a teacher. And then, my father was like, oh, there's no teaching roles. You'll never be able to become a teacher. There's, if you take a degree, a general arts degree, it's never going to equate to anything. So, long story short, I didn't go to university. I went to college, and I had to work my way. I took a job, my diploma was in recreation management. And it was something I was very passionate about. But when I started working, I entered into a recession. And so I had to take every job you could imagine, right? Like receptionist and human resources. I worked in the fire department as a filing assistant. And long story short, eventually I ended up in marketing. So my whole career, I've been a chameleon. And then, of course, I started Women in Biz Network and did that for many years. And what ended up happening was the pandemic caused me to have to go back to the drawing board. And me without a degree, I ended up becoming a teacher. And I teach now at York and the University of Guelph Humber. So I'm really proud of who I've become and what I've accomplished, but I feel exhausted from always having to prove myself. And I think the biggest person I'm trying to prove myself to is me because of all of those messages that I received that I wasn't enough. I'm going to get emotional. But just
I want to give you a big hug. I want to give you a
yeah,
big
the
hug.
comments
Yeah.
all really resonate with me. So anyway, I'm just curious, if your research, if you kind of reflected on people that have had traumatic experiences and how that, if they were able to get past their trauma in order to believe in themselves.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. There's so many things in there that have great jumping off points, but you are the queen of pivot. So congratulations on that if you need something. So yeah, the vulnerability, sharing vulnerability is such a thing now because it's so sticky for us when it's real and heartfelt and honest. So for the research, it didn't go, I would love it to keep going and have that information where I could say it's pinpoint the data to that. I think it would need a data set of probably 1 million people and 1 million people being honest with things. What I did find though deeply is that it's intersectionality of socioeconomic. And so when people are not from great means, they know that they can't step out of line. And it's interesting too, on the absolute opposite polar end is people who are rich also know in some ways, at least from the past, that they couldn't step out of line because the family expectations. So it's where you are. But when you don't have a lot of means, you stay in line, you put your head down, you do good work, and eventually someone will notice you. And this goes back to the factory era for a lot of us, where you wanted to be invisible. You didn't want to be seen and heard because it meant a steady paycheck. And a steady paycheck what meant the most because of how the world was. And so a lot of this was, and that's why it's so conflicting. We're in friction in this period because we have all these old social norms that I talk about a bit in the book, conflicting with the world that we are in today, but also really conflicting with the world that we're entering into because, oh my goodness, right? So it's a conflict, and that's part of the challenge. One thing I really want to say to you, though, I'm happy to hear is that you're looking for that you are trying to prove your worth to yourself. And I think that's a great place than trying to prove your worth to your mom or other people. Like, you know, love your mom, but that you can work on internally by having some of those conversations. And I talk about that we brag to ourselves first. So that's where you need to brag to yourself, give yourself the kudos for going and working with the firefighters and then now teaching and touching the hearts and minds of all these students, and like write down all of those things constantly. And so when you see and you feel that, you know, your mom saying, oh, look at her putting herself out there, who does she think she is? She is all that. So celebrate your nieces for being seen and putting themselves out there. Is it for you? Maybe, maybe not. But celebrate yourself daily on anything that comes across that, you know, we can't wait for other people to give us compliments, or because everyone's in their own firefighting, in their own, everything's exploding around them. And I'm going to keep saying, especially now where our attention is everywhere else. And so we might have known that you did a good job, but we're not going to articulate it because squirrel. Right? We're on to something else. And so that's where we need to make sure. I didn't get a compliment. You know, I'll be honest, yesterday I did a show, did a client gig, and it was on Zoom. And I didn't realize that I was working on Keynote because I have a bigger presentation in person on and I wanted to use Keynote because that's what they've asked it for. So I thought, oh, I'll just use some of this presentation in this little presentation, but Keynote doesn't play well. And so all last night I was ruminating, oh my goodness, I didn't have slides. What did they think of it? And in the end, they loved it even more that I didn't have slides because people were then being honest, but I was in my own brain and making it about me more so than what it needs to be. So I should have said to myself, you did a great job. You know what? You went with the flow. Technology didn't work with you. It was just a beat or two missed off the top. And then it was wonderful. But we stay in our brains and ruminate for far too long. And so that's where in the book, I try to shift it from this, you know, shame piece, the shame spiral, into guilt. I feel guilty that I didn't realize it. It seemed to work in the trial. But then when it was actually a real live, and it wasn't my Zoom, it didn't work. So I felt guilty. So now I feel guilty, but nobody else cares at all. I'm getting notes about it. So woohoo, but I don't remember the notes. I just think about myself, right? So it's thinking a little bit less about ourselves. So yeah, I hope that helps. Does that help you at all?
It does, yeah. Like it, because especially as an educator now, we get evaluated every term, right? And so I have to. I actually wrote to ChatGPT that just the other day saying, okay, how do I deal with these evaluations? I can't even, I'm like frozen in fear to even look at them. And they're always usually fine, but it's just like, it's that one comment that will have me spiraling into, and I can't get over it for days, you know? So I have to be really in a good headspace to be able to look at feedback.
Okay. Nope. Nope. No more. Nope. Nope. Your permission slip is only 90 minutes. I think it's my new friend, Dr. Robin Defoe. Now, I would like you to buy my book, but this is a good book too. But she had a clip on it recently online. I think it was LinkedIn, where she says your body 90 minutes. And if you don't let it go in 90 minutes, you can keep it for 7 years. So when we ruminate about things, you get 90 minutes. Whoa-ho, boo-hoo me. I messed up the slide presentation, or that student didn't like me. 90 minutes. And then that's it. You lose a contract, you lose, well, a job is kind of it, but you lose something, 90 minutes. And then that's all I get. The timer is on, timer goes off, and move on.
I love that.
It's hard, but try that out, 90 minutes, and not, because otherwise it's all consuming and you could be doing so much better, so much more, not better, so much more to give to your students than rumination. Rumination's so bad. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because
That's great.
I'm sure we've all been there at some point, and just to keep going back to all of that, like there's nothing really, we're worthy regardless, over and over. Like nothing impacts our worth. Just being here, being able to contribute, and to get to a point, I can't wait till I get to that point, but anyway, to let it all go, the more it's a moment in time, and you do so much amazing work, Lee, just so I can put that out there right now, that you are incredible, and just keep stepping into those things. I started one thing, I forget who I got it from, one of these gurus out there, but it was to start an accomplishment list. And it said 50, they said 50 things. And I was around that age at the time, and I thought, this is cool, I'll do 50, and then I'll just keep adding it each year. And even as simple as, like, I put down being born, but then I just kept going, and like finishing high school, because that was pretty amazing that I actually did that, given where I was, So I'm up to over 60, I think, now, and I'm going to keep adding. And it's like, it really is. And I love that there's lots of practical exercises in Lisa's book that also, taking that time to work through those exercises is really helpful. But anyway, just amazingly, I can't wait to see what's next for you. And just a student, it's their issue. They haven't lived life yet. Karen, thank you. I know you have a question, so hop on out.
More comment, but thank you, Lisa, for writing this book, because I am one of those, and I missed some of the conversation because I had to take a call, but I'm one of those kids who grew up with, when you're in a room with adults, you are to be seen and not heard. And so my entire family feels that way. And I'm a 5'10" redhead. People notice when I walk in a room usually. And so I don't have a relationship with my parents and my siblings anymore, but now they still influence my children. So my Facebook reaches between over 200,000 people a month, sometimes up to 600,000 on my Facebook. And so people comment to my kids, who are now all adults, oh, what your mom post on Facebook today? Or, shit like that. And now my kids are like, Mom, could you just stop? And I'm like, no, this is my career. This is what I do. And you're just going to have to deal with it. So now my kids won't speak to me anymore. It's quite a journey and I said to them one day, I feel like you guys just would like to have this shrinking flower, boring mom who's like prudy and sits in the corner and nobody notices her. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, sorry. And like my daughter last week was like, well, my boyfriend, his mom's normal. And I'm like, there's not one molecule of my body that ever strived to be normal. So congratulations, you got me as a mom. But all that to say, it's programming. It's people have drilled this into us for so long that we can't be quote unquote too much, as Lee said, that if we are in, showing off, which is not showing off, but like I walk in a room and say hi to people and I don't hide in the corner. And I think we really need to do more of that and celebrate who we are and our accomplishments and what we've done. Anyway, I appreciate this because we don't talk about it enough.
We don't, and that's the book, and it's so many people. So yeah, I'm sad that your family doesn't see all the value you're bringing to the world, because clearly all those people do. So there's that for you for sure. But the more we help people to be seen and heard, the more people can say there's a model that I should be following. There's a mentor, like Helen talks about. There's a mentor. I can see it, I can be it, or I can reach out to that person. And so it's being of service. It's not an I-centered thing, and that's not ego. It's clarity of who I am and putting it out there because we're of service to the world. So hopefully they'll come around eventually on it. But there's generations past that just don't get it too, that in this day and age, to make money and to be sustainable, including being entrepreneurs and including being in corporate, you need to make sure that people know who you are. And again, it goes back to the speed of opportunity when I gave that talk, and I'm giving one similar next week, that when people are thinking about opportunities, you're not that shrinking violet over there that they're not going to remember because AI, you're front and center, that AI is going to know you, and the people that matter that are going to hire you to keep you going for the next X amount of years, that they're going to hire you too. So it's actually critical for people to be seen and heard. And I'm not saying we have to all be on social media, but how are you doing it in a way that feels good to you? And then you can go deep on LinkedIn as a given for everyone. But how are you doing it? Are you making those phone calls? Are you writing a newsletter? Are you having a ton of person-to-person meetings? Because that's what lights you up. Is it emails that you're sending out to people? And so those are all some ways that it doesn't have to be that that an extrovert. You can be an introvert or ambivert too in doing this work. But it's critical for your future, for your safety even, I would say.
Yeah. And I talk about a lot of really difficult subjects like domestic violence and sexual assault, and I call out shitty men. And so people are like, ooh, your mom. And I'm like, we need to have these
somebody needs to hear
too.
it. Yeah. Karen, I'm going to ask you, because you have a huge audience, if you could share my book, if this touched your heart in any way with your huge audience, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. That's amazing that you have such a huge audience. So obviously you're
just from being real. It's on my personal page, not my business page. And I'm just real. And I get so many DMs from women and even some men who are like, thank you for saying the things that I haven't found the courage to say yet.
Awesome. Beautiful.
And that's what we really like. That's why I do it, is if I help one person feel like they're not alone in what they're going through, that makes my day.
Thank you.
So that's why I do it, but I will definitely share it for sure.
Thank you.
And feel free to connect with me also on all the things.
All the things.
Yes, everyone. And Dolores, I don't know if you have a question. We're almost at time where we're probably over. I want to make sure we're mindful of that. But if Lisa's okay, I don't know how much time you have. A couple more minutes. Did you have any comments?
Absolutely, if Dolores.
I don't really have a question, but we did meet. Actually, it was a while ago through a workshop with Andrea. And It was just nice to see you. I do have the book. And yeah, for me, it's always been trying to figure out how to do the brags, how to speak up and say, well, I've done X, Y, Z without sounding, I don't know, I guess too much or sounding too not braggy, but just coming off as though, yeah, who do you think you are? And I do have these accomplishments. I'm getting better at it and saying things, but it's still there. There's still a little bit of hesitation, but I'm also in my life at this point where if I don't do it, it may not happen, and I can't wait around for somebody else to sort of say, oh yeah, well, she did that, or you should talk to her, that sort of thing. So I really did appreciate when you gave the talk for the rewrite, and then also getting to book to really, zero in on some of this stuff, and just to keep going.
Thank you for that. Yeah. If not now, when? It's
Right.
that one. And you know what? I wrote the book on it. My last name is Bragg, and it is a practice. We have to come back to it again and again and again because, we've been trained for centuries to be hidden and play small. But this world that we're heading into, there's no room for that. We have to be seen and heard in the way that feels comfortable, but that's really of service to the people that we're meant to serve. Because otherwise, they're going to go to a mediocre person down the hall, and they need you. They need you, Dolores. That's where people need my book. Make the ask to people like Karen who have big audiences. Like, make the ask to have different people, and you never know how it's going to influence things, but it is a practice. So just want to give you that. You're going to go back to the book again and again and again and find those pieces that you need to remember for whatever it is in that space and time that you need to have that encouragement. So somebody said it off the top that I was like a cheerleader in their head. That's one of my goals. I like that. When I hear that, it's like, yes, it's my fault. Put it on me that you're putting a brag out there. I give you the permission slip to do so.
Oh, I love that. And that's probably a wonderful way to wrap up, because we'll just have to tag Lisa said we could brag.
Absolutely.
Please, if anybody has the book, I want to try to take a photo. As I said, Emmeline is usually here to help me with all these things, but if you don't mind, it's hard just to sort of hold it up, even if you have it on your phone. Dolores will turn yours around, and oh, that's awesome. Thank you. I'm getting better at that. But Lisa, first of all, thank you again for spending this time with us and just sharing this. It just came at the right time for me too. I have so many, and it's so funny because I know Michael Bungay Stanier did a quote, and he had said to me, I had sent him an email because I interviewed him for my book, and he had said, just so you know, I don't always give a testimonial, but send it. And I didn't send it because I thought I don't want to be rejected. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll still send it now because I could put it on the updated version or something. It's like, and I was trying to see how close I would get to number one near him because he's in the same category. I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to compete with him in coaching and mentoring category? But I did make it there and some other ones. So it's sort of fun. It's just such a pleasure to have this space, and I'm so glad that we spent this time together. I think you impacted all of us here. So, like you said, even if it's one person at one time, it makes the world of difference. So, thanks everybody too for being here. And next month, I will figure out the logistics and update all of the calendars and the Zooms because the dates got all mixed up, which is those things. But we're kind of going back to that fourth or fifth Friday of the month. And our next book is called Follow Your Heart to discover your life purpose. And Kelly McClellan, who's been at the book circle here and there, who was one of my mentees with Startup Women, Startup Canada. And just a beautiful book. She's also written a children's book. So that's going to be a really great talk again, getting the clarity. And we have all the books lined up once a month until the end of the year. And so I'm going to send out another note that lists them all. And except for December, take that month off. But I'm so excited. And I just hope everyone has a wonderful Friday. And I hope to see you again next month. And Lisa, hope to see you in person sometime to give you a
Before you
hug.
shut this off, Helen, I hate to interrupt, but I did a screenshot and put it in the chat for anyone who wants to save it before we go.
Oh, you're so awesome. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Can I just have one ask? It is so
Yeah.
hard to get Amazon reviews. So my ask is, one, give Helen a review. And it doesn't matter that you haven't read the book. It matters if you think the person has done a good job in anything. So if you like them in any shape or form, you don't have to buy the book on Amazon as long as you've bought something within a certain period of time. But an Amazon review for Helen and then one for me too, please. It really does make a difference in getting a book to be seen and heard with new audiences. It really helps. So, and again, it doesn't matter if you haven't read the whole book. A lot of people think they have to have done everything. It's like, did you find this of service? And to give it a 5-star for both of us. So I'd really appreciate that.
Thank you. I got to get in that zone of doing
You
that.
do. You have to ask everyone because, life, busy. Like,
I'll take 5-star reviews on my book too, just so you know.
Just
And we're ready to write theirs. We'll be doing it for you.
Just a note, because this happened to me. You can't reference that you know the person, because I tried to leave a quote for Helen and I referenced our connection and they would not publish that. And I still have yet to be able to add it back again. I'm going to try today and I'll definitely do yours as well, Lisa. But yeah, it has to be impartial. At least that's what.
Yeah. Well, that's a great tip too, to actually give guidance to people. I mean, I know a lot of people will actually write things I just do it differently. As I said, I've done it very organically, and that's me. I feel more comfortable. But there's nothing wrong with asking. Like, we need to ask more and we need to receive more. That's my mission this year. I'm receiving a lot. So send it over my way.
As somebody mentioned in the chat, Helen, like, we're better at cheering each other on. So I was the one telling people to buy your book in your book launch, not you. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of how we roll as women, is somebody else cheers us on, but we don't always cheer ourselves on.
Yeah,
So
I will be
want to
now.
congratulate Helen on becoming bestseller in 24 hours after her book launched in her category. So I'm going to say that because she didn't.
I will. I'm easing into it.
I'll help.
But this is perfect to get me motivated and to get it going. So have a wonderful weekend, everybody. I will see you soon. And sending love. Enjoy some spring, thankfully. And I will hopefully see you next month. All right. Take care. Thank you, everybody.